The man who invented monasteries became Christian because strangers fed him in prison. Before monks filled Europe with monasteries, one Egyptian convert quietly invented the Christian life in community. Saint Pachomius was born around the year 292 in Upper Egypt, in the region called the Thebaid. This was the land of the Nile, desert villages, ancient temples, and growing Christian communities. He was born into a pagan family long before he understood the faith he would later shape. His exact birthplace is usually placed near Thebes, close to modern Luxor in southern Egypt. He grew up in a world where Christianity had only recently survived waves of persecution. The Roman Empire was changing, but Egypt still carried the weight of older religious traditions. Nothing in his childhood suggested that he would become one of monastic history's great founders. He was not born into a Christian household, and he did not begin life as a monk. He first entered Christian history through an event he did not choose for himself. Around the age of 20, Pachomius was forced into military service during imperial recruitment. Some accounts connect this recruitment with the armies of Emperor Constantine during a troubled period. He was taken with other young men and transported along the Nile toward military duty. When the recruits reached Thebes, they were held under guard in harsh and miserable conditions. They were tired, confined, hungry, and uncertain about the future waiting ahead of them. Then Pachomius saw something that changed the direction of his entire life. Local Christians came to the imprisoned recruits and brought them food, comfort, and practical help. These Christians did not know the young soldiers, and they expected nothing in return. Their charity struck Pachomius more deeply than argument, force, or public preaching could have done. He asked why these strangers cared for men who had no claim upon them. The answer was simple, but it opened a door in his soul. They served the soldiers because they were Christians and because Christ commanded love. Pachomius remembered this act of mercy after he was released from military service. He had seen pagan religion, imperial power, and human suffering before that moment. But in Christian charity, he saw a different kind of strength. After leaving the army, he sought baptism and entered the Christian life. Many accounts place his baptism around the year 314, after his discharge from service. He settled near the village of Shinaset, also connected with Chenoboskion in Upper Egypt. His conversion was not a passing emotion caused by kindness during a crisis. He wanted to give his whole life to the God whose followers had fed him. After baptism, Pachomius looked for a teacher who could train him in serious ascetic discipline. He found that teacher in the hermit Palaemon, sometimes written Palaemon. Palaemon was an experienced desert ascetic, strict in prayer, fasting, silence, and manual labor. Pachomius placed himself under this older monk and learned the discipline of the desert. This was not romantic solitude, but a hard school of obedience and self-denial. The desert monks fought pride, comfort, distraction, anger, gluttony, and spiritual laziness. Pachomius learned to pray for long hours, often with his arms stretched like a cross. He learned to work with his hands, eat simply, sleep little, and endure hardship. He did not invent monasticism from comfort theory or administrative ambition. He first lived the life personally, under obedience, before he ever governed others. For several years, Pachomius remained with Palaemon and absorbed the older desert tradition. At that time, many Egyptian monks lived as hermits in scattered cells and caves. Saint Anthony the Great had already become the great model of solitary desert holiness. But not every man could safely imitate the full severity of Anthony's solitude. Some needed structure, guidance, brotherhood, correction, and common worship to persevere faithfully. Pachomius gradually understood that the desert needed more than heroic individuals. It needed a disciplined Christian household where many souls could seek God together. According to his ancient lives, Pachomius received a call connected with Tabanisi. Tabanisi was a deserted village in Upper Egypt, near the Nile. There, he believed God wanted him to build a place where monks would gather. One tradition says he heard a voice commanding him to dwell there and build. Another tradition describes an angelic instruction to serve mankind by uniting souls to God. However these visions are interpreted, Pachomius responded with practical obedience. He did not merely describe a spiritual idea, he built a working community. Around the years 318 to 323, he founded his first monastery at Tabanisi. This foundation became the beginning of organized Christian Cenobitic monasticism. The word Cenobitic comes from the idea of a common life. Instead of each monk living alone, monks lived together under a shared rule. They prayed together, worked together, ate according to discipline, and obeyed common authority. Pachomius became their Abba, their father, from which the word abbot developed. His own brother John joined him, though their relationship was not always easy. John had also embraced the ascetic life and shared Pachomius's desire for holiness. But Pachomius saw that a monastery could not be governed by family attachment. The common life demanded humility, order, and freedom from private control. In some accounts, tensions arose because John did not fully understand Pachomius's growing mission. Pachomius had to place obedience to God above even natural family closeness. This shows one of his central traits. He was tender in charity, but firm in order. The monastery grew quickly, and more men came seeking the life he had begun. Soon, Tabanisi became too small for the number of monks gathered around him. Pachomius then developed a wider network of monasteries across Upper Egypt. A major center later emerged at Pibu, also called Pechbo or Pabu. Pabu became especially important in the organization of the Pachomian communities. By the end of his life, his federation included several monasteries for men. Ancient and modern summaries often speak of 9 monasteries for men and 2 for women. The women's communities are connected especially with his sister, often named Maria. This detail matters because Pachomius did not build merely one holy retreat. He built a whole Christian structure capable of forming many different lives. The Pachomian rule gave the monks a stable pattern for prayer, work, silence, and obedience. It is considered the earliest known written rule for Christian communal monastic life. The rule did not crush every monk into the same spiritual measure. It allowed stronger ascetics to fast more severely, while protecting weaker monks from collapse. The monks shared food, clothing, labor, worship, and discipline under appointed leaders. They worked with their hands, often weaving mats, making baskets, farming, or serving practical needs. Manual work was not a distraction from prayer, but part of ordered holiness. Pachomius understood that men needed rhythm, responsibility, and humility as much as solitude. He created houses, superiors, duties, common meals, and systems of accountability. This was revolutionary because it turned scattered ascetic energy into a disciplined Christian society. His monasteries were not escapes from the church, but schools of deeper Christian life. Pachomius himself was never primarily known as a priest or public preacher. Some traditions say Saint Athanasius wanted to ordain him, but Pachomius avoided the honor. That detail fits his character because he feared spiritual pride and public status. He defended Orthodox Christianity during an age troubled by the Arian controversy. Yet his deepest influence came through formation rather than public controversy. He showed that holiness could be organized without becoming worldly. He showed that obedience could be strong without destroying personal, spiritual effort. He showed that poverty could be communal, practical, and stable. Many stories of miracles and spiritual gifts gathered around his memory. Some traditions say he possessed extraordinary discernment regarding the souls of monks. Others say he was granted visions, angelic guidance, and knowledge beyond natural explanation. One famous tradition says he could sometimes speak languages he had never learned. Another tradition connects him with early use or recommendation of a prayer rope. As with many ancient saints, not every miracle story can be verified historically. But the deeper miracle is beyond dispute. He transformed Christian ascetic life permanently. Pachomius continued guiding his communities for roughly 30 years. His final years were marked by labor, responsibility, and care for many monks. Around 346 or 348, an epidemic struck the region and affected the monastic communities. Pachomius strengthened his monks and urged them to remain faithful during the crisis. He died on May 9th. Most commonly given as the year 348. Some older sources give 346, which reflects differences in ancient dating traditions. His death is associated especially with Po in Upper Egypt. He was not canonized through the later medieval process of papal canonization. Like many early saints, he was recognized by the ancient church through continuous veneration. His feast is kept on May 9th in many Catholic calendars. Other Christian traditions commemorate him on different nearby dates, especially in Eastern calendars. His influence traveled far beyond Egypt after his death. Saint Jerome translated the Pachomian rule into Latin, helping carry his model westward. Saint Basil learned from Egyptian monasticism and developed rules for Eastern monastic life. Saint Benedict later inherited a world already shaped by the communal ideal Pachomius pioneered. Without Pachomius, Christian monasticism might have remained mostly heroic solitude. With Pachomius, it became a disciplined family of prayer, labor, obedience, and charity. His life began with a hungry soldier receiving food from strangers. It ended with thousands of monks learning to serve Christ in ordered brotherhood. That is why Saint Pachomius is remembered as the father of communal monastic life. He did not simply flee the world, he built a holy alternative to it. His monasteries became signs that Christian charity could be disciplined, visible, and durable. His legacy is found wherever monks pray together under a common rule. Saint Pachomius teaches that one act of charity can convert a life. He also teaches that one converted life can reshape the history of the Church. Being Catholic is based. Be one yourself. Subscribe for daily saints and Catholic history.